Welcome to the Make Me Better podcast. Hey everybody, I'm Misty Rooks, and this is the Make Me Better podcast. Today I get to talk to Steve Green. Steve teaches at Dade County High School right here in Trenton, Georgia. He also coaches track and field, and he's the director of the FCA at the high school. So that's the Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So you guys probably already know him for all those things, and I'm excited to have him here with me today. Thank you, Steve, for being here.
Yeah, thank you very much for allowing me to be part of this. I stumbled across this podcast on Facebook, and you say track and field. One of my track parents, Chad McDill, was on here, and he had an incredible story. And the McDill family has been really supportive of me and supportive of what we've done at Dade. So, when I heard his story, I figured this would be a good opportunity to tell my story as well, since,
Yes.
you were asking for anybody that want to be part. So
I did. I'm so glad you saw that post because you messaged me
mm-hmm.
and I was like, how cool, because I don't even know this person, but I see you all the time on Facebook. I see you doing stuff with the kids and I love it. I love what I see going on with the FCA, and it looks like you guys are doing really well in track. I know some of the students who participate in track, so it's good to see what all you guys are doing over there. So I'm like, yes, let's hear what Steve has to say, because I think you're doing a lot of good things around here.
Yeah, we're just doing the best I can. It's a real small area, small town. But what God's shown me in the past few years has been how, a small place like this still has a lot of wonderful people that can really come together and you can make something good. I've seen that in the classroom, and I've seen that in my FCA organization that's been recently been upstarting again for the past couple of years, as well as our track and field team, which I can brag about all day. With it, we're not going to get too much in detail with the track team, but yes, I'm very proud of them and proud of the community we built. So
that's great. So you have a story that goes way back to when you were in college, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. So, the nature of the podcast is make me better, which I think goes along with James. We talks about like we endure trials, which makes us better, makes us grow. It sounds like the nature of this podcast, which, I really love. Romans 8:28, for all things work together for good for those who love the Lord, who called according to his purpose. That's a big verse of mine. And it definitely applies to the story that I'm going to tell. For starters, it's a story that some students have heard it, some have not. I honestly, a lot of my most recent students have probably not heard this story, nor the parents. But it goes way back. For starters, I don't know what it is. Maybe it's, as you get older, you start losing count of things, like how many years you teach or coach or go to school or whatever. So, now I have to start aging myself. 19 years ago is when this happened.
Okay.
So
I can identify with that.
Yeah, I did the counting. I was like, goodness gracious, that's how long ago it was. 19 years ago, I was a college student over at it was called Augusta State University, which is where I'm originally from. It's now known as Augusta University. So when I was at Augusta State University, I was part of an organization known as Campus Outreach. I don't know if you're familiar with Campus Outreach.
Not really.
So Campus Outreach is it's a student organization where students come together. They learn to evangelize, learn about the gospel, learn how to share the gospel with others. My Augusta State Campus Outreach was wonderful, and anytime I have a student that's graduating from college, I always recommend them maybe find a campus outreach or a organization that is devoted to the gospel, devoted to the Lord, to be part of, because college is a tough experience. And so the campus outreach worked for me. And there was this house that we had that the students would hang out at, and we'd kind of just we'd play games, eat food. We'd have Bible studies and prayer meetings and such like that. So I think it was just some casual time we were having together that night 19 years ago. I remember being there with some of my college friends, and we were discussing a big event that Campus Outreach does called Summer Beach Project. Now, what that is when college students come together and they're going to the beach. Now, it sounds like a big vacation. It's
Yeah.
not, okay? Summer Beach Project is a lot of work. It's when we throw ourselves in a hotel room. We have to get our job, typically like fast food or somewhere, some kind of minimum wage job. And we're using that to help fund the hotel, our living wages. And then the rest of our time, we are doing Bible study sessions, learning how to evangelize, share the gospel with other people in the beach area, and then bring it back home so that we can. So it's like an intense camp.
Intensive, yeah.
An intense type camp experience, yes. So, and I wanted to go be part of that. I wanted to be part of that, and I was excited about it. And at that time in my life, I really felt like, God was pushing me more into that, evangelizing type activity. I don't know. I mean, when you're at my age in college, which it only took me 8 years to get through college. I mean, and I did not get a doctorate or anything. I was not the most responsible in college. I didn't party or anything like that, but like I was not, I couldn't decide what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But I was at a point where it's like I knew that eventually I was going to get out of college. I was eventually going to be a teacher, so now I have to be able to have this skill set ready to share the gospel with others. So it was that night we're hanging out. We were 3 days away from going to Summer Beach Project, and I'm driving home. Now in Augusta, there's this big interstate, Bobby Jones, expressway that we go on so I can go home. And it's about 11 o'clock at night. We're there late. And as I'm going down the interstate, we all know the interstate goes one way.
Yeah.
Everybody's going one direction.
Supposed to. Well,
as I'm driving down, I see lights coming right towards me, 2 big headlights. And, I didn't panic at first, but I started to swerve to the right. When I swerved to the right, those headlights went to the right with me as well.
Oh.
And so we're driving, and we both hit head-on collision at about 60 miles an hour up in Bobby Jones. So my car ends up skidding over to the right on the side of the road, and I saw the other car kind of spin right in front of me, and the front of my car completely crunched. I was trapped inside. And I remember, like, when that happened, I freaked out. I was like, I was like, no, like, no way, no, this is not supposed to happen, not supposed to happen. I was freaking out.
Yeah,
like, what happened? I was literally just driving home, and this car comes and hits me head on.
Yeah.
And so, I saw no movement in that car in front of me, and I'm just sitting here, and I don't remember a lot of pain. I'm just kind of sitting there like I can't really move my legs out of the way. I can move them, but I couldn't, like, they're stuck. So this wonderful soul comes by, and he stops, this man. I don't remember his name. I wish I did. And he said, "Hey, man, are you okay? Are you okay?" I was like, I don't know. I don't know. Mm-hmm. And I'm just like, I think I am, but I can't get out of the car. And he's like, "Well, just hang in there, man. Just hang in there." He didn't say anything deep or anything, but he was just kind of there, which is always an important thing. I think that people can remember is, like, sometimes, you're in the right place at the right time, just to kind of be there for somebody, in this case. So the ambulance, the first responders, everybody come, and I'm just sitting here in this car, and police officers are looking at me, and they're looking at me saying, well, they said, "You're gonna have to hang tight." I was like, "We're not gonna be able to get you first. We got to get the other person first because their injuries are life-threatening. You're moving, you're active, you're breathing. That person we don't know is gonna make it."
Wow.
So I'm sitting there, and as I'm sitting there, I'm trying to open the door. Maybe I can get out my own. Couldn't do that, and I tried to get my legs free, and I really couldn't do that either. I had scratches all over my left leg, like it was like Wolverine just come in and just slash me up. And my right leg, I couldn't really see anything. I couldn't see my foot. And it was like, what had happened was the, the floorboard of the car had come up, and the top part of the car had come in, and it kind of encased my foot. So I could not move it or get it out. And it honestly just felt like my foot or my ankle was twisted. So I was like, I'd try to get out of here so I can, get free, and then I can just walk it off or something. Well, glad it didn't happen for what's about to come up. But so the police, they come to my car, and they use the jaws of life to pry out the door. And as I'm trying to move my foot, I start to think to myself, is this injury real bad? And so when I pulled my leg up a little bit, I saw blood on my ankle, and I said, that's it. Something bad happened. This is not a sprain or anything.
Yeah.
This is like something real bad. So, well, anyways, they continue to use the jaws of life to kind of pry open things and free me. And so this paramedic or whatever, one of the guys was going to get me out, he said, all right, we're going to pull you out of this car. Now, if you want to scream at the top of your lungs, go right on ahead, because it's going to hurt. That's what he told me. So I was like, okay. And so they get me and they pull me out, and it hurt.
Ooh,
it hurt.
Yeah.
There's nothing else to say other than just hurt. So they put me on a stretcher. So I got taken out of my car. I'm in a stretcher. My car is completely just crunched. I mean, it's just totaled, whatever. And so, God makes all of us different. Like you have some people that they're going to tell you, just straight up what happened to you, just plainly, dryly, no emotion. You have some people use euphemisms, the nicer way of saying, what happened to you. And then you have the people that are they kind of use this awful humor. And I got the third guy, and he looked at me and he said, well, I hate to tell this to you, buddy, but your foot's hanging off your leg pretty good right there. Ooh. So what had happened was I received a compound fracture in my right ankle, and it essentially turned my ankle 90 degrees.
Ouch.
So, yeah. So it was a bad accident.
Not good.
Yeah, bad accident. So I'm on the stretcher. I get put in the back of the ambulance, and we're on our way. Now, are you familiar with Medical College of Georgia, MCG? Are you familiar
Not
with
really.
them? All right.
No.
So it's in Augusta, Georgia. Again, Augusta's, I always like to say, being from Augusta, Georgia, it makes it sound like I'm from like another state or country or something around here in Trenton. But because I have all these stories and things that are commonplace to me, but people have never even heard of. But yeah, there's MCG, Medical College of Georgia, wonderful school, wonderful place, wonderful people, everything. But they have people that learn to be doctors and paramedics and all that. And they were the ones that mostly took care of me. And I'll preface it by saying they did a really good job taking care of me. But I swear, every time I was from the paramedic to the hospital to whatever, I swear somebody's telling me they're in training every time. My foot is 90 degrees, and now I got people in training. They're taking care of me. So I'm like, right. So this guy, this young guy, I remember he had a syringe, and he's looking at me, and he's like, it was like he was jacked up, and he was been waiting for this moment all his life. He was like, hello, sir. He was like, my name is Terrell. I don't really know his name. I'm just using the name. My name's Terrell. And he goes, I'm in training. And I'm going to take care of you today. I'm going to get you some anesthetics. So he had a syringe, and he went right into the, oh, I just hit the mic there. He went right into the arm. And he's trying to get my vein to put anesthetic in. And he misses the vein, so he uses some profanity. Oh, and he's getting all mad at himself. He takes it out, and he goes, try it again. Boom. So he misses the vein again. And he's using more profanity. And we're driving down the ambulance, whatever. And he goes for a third time. It's like, he's still missing the vein. And I finally said, would somebody please put this syringe in my arm? Please. Anybody. And finally, this guy pushes him out of the way, takes the syringe, wham, fourth time, finally, we get it in. I'm like, thank goodness, So I'm in the car, and so the guy in training I guess he got fired for that job or whatever, or maybe he went back to get more training somewhere else before we could do it again.
Maybe he got more training.
So, but I remember like getting the anesthetic, and I'm just, thinking about trying to recollect of all that's happened. I can't believe I'm in this position. I'm
Yeah.
driving home from my um, college campus outreach to go, back to at the time, my parents' house, and just the next 3 days go to this beach trip. And here I am on a hospital bed. I'm not going. I can't, my foot's all messed
No.
up. And so I started to get delirious too. And, I'm sitting there, and, all these people are looking at me. He's like, "Are you okay?" And I goes, "Yeah, I'm all right." And I was like, but here's a good thing. I started saying some dumb stuff. I'm just like, here's a good thing. He said, I'm not gonna get a ticket for not having my seatbelt on, because I had my seatbelt on the whole time. And so, like, yes, you did. That was good. You had your seatbelt on. I did that. Yeah, I didn't do anything for this foot, but I had my seatbelt on. And so I was just saying stuff like that. I don't remember what else I said. There's no telling what I could have said, but. Anyways, I finally get transferred into the details get blurry, but I got transferred to some kind of room where I'm just kind of sitting waiting for a doctor, procedure, whatever. And my parents were contacted, and they came by. My mom looking down upon me like I'm her little baby boy again. At 25 years old.
Yeah.
And just seeing if I was okay. And he says, "I'm fine. My legs hurt though." And um. So we had, remember I had to stay up, and I couldn't go to sleep for longest time. And they just said they had to do reconstructive surgery on my ankle, because obviously it's perpendicular, which is
Yeah.
not correct for an ankle. So they put me under the knife, and I woke up and I have a big cast of pins and needles and all this stuff all on my foot. So, I'm sitting there in the hospital bed saying, why am I in this position? God, why? Going back to the why?
Mhm.
When I first got hit, why would you put me in this position? Why would I be in a position where, I could be going to a place where I'm learning more about you, and I'm going to preach the gospel and do this stuff, but yet you I got hit by a drunk
Mhm.
driver, because they were drunk. They were heavily intoxicated. Um, and I said, that's not supposed to be for me. But being that, the nature of this podcast is like, okay, you're in this position. You got to start thinking about what is God trying to tell you here,
Yeah.
which is exactly what, I'm trying to think in my brain. And that's where I felt like God speak to me, and he said, "Steve, this is uh, going to a big mission trip, project, whatever, is not necessary to spread my word or to spread my glory."
Yeah.
Um, I
I
mean,
love that.
we all look at like these big, the Billy Grahams, these big
Yes.
evangelical preachers that preach to thousands and thousands of
Yeah.
people. That's like I went to a Christian school, and I thought that was the ultimate goal. You're supposed to be like that,
Oh, yeah.
you know. But I guess kind of the nature of being in Dade County too, it's just like, no, think small scale, because there's people that need to be in these smaller places too. Or in my situation, be in a hospital bed,
Yeah.
and just think upon what God is trying to tell me at
Yeah.
this moment for the one person that's in a hospital room not far from me that almost died,
Mhm.
and which is what I'll get to.
So have you ever heard the saying, like the best ministry you can do is just love the person in front of you?
Yeah.
It goes something like that.
Yes.
Yeah, because most of us are never going to have a stage
No.
or a big following,
No.
but we can do something.
Right.
We can do a lot.
Yes.
You um, can help change one person's life,
Mm-hmm.
and then you don't know what that's going to lead to.
Right. So, so one of the verses I think about too is Genesis 50:20, which refers to Jacob
Yeah.
when when Jacob was enslaved by his brothers. And he said to them, "As for you, you meant evil against me, but God meant it for good, to bring about that many people should be kept alive as they are today." So I'm sitting there, and my summer plans are ruined.
Right.
And my brain was ruined. And you have a lot of time to reflect. And So as I'm sitting there with this big cast and pins and needles and whatever, my leg, thinking if I'll be able to walk again, because I didn't know, uh, I started to think about the person that hit me. She
Mm.
was 19 years old,
Mm.
uh, heavily intoxicated, probably was partying or something, who
Yeah.
knows. Um, I didn't really understand as much back then, but I understand it more as we, being teachers. When kids, especially in high school, especially teaching high school past 5 years, when I hear about a kid that does something like that, the first thing that goes to my mind now is it's they're filling their body with something that's meant to be the Lord, helping them, comforting
Yeah.
them. The alcohol's a vice. The drugs are a vice. They're a way to like help them forget about their problems, or maybe they're just being irresponsible and just trying to let time pass as they have their fun. I don't know her story, but so I asked the nurse. This nurse comes in training, by the way. Hey, I'm so and so in training. I'm like, great. No, here's another nurse in training. And so I said, well, I was like, can you get me a piece of paper so I can write down a note? She said, sure, sure. So she comes by, and I decided to write a letter to this woman. And I told her, I said, I hope you're okay. I think it sounds like you are, because they had told me that you almost lost your legs. So that's what they said. They said she almost lost her legs in the accident, but they said that she's stable. And so I said, well, I just want you to know that I'm okay, and I'm good, and I'm not angry or anything like that, but I want you to know that Jesus died on the cross for your sins and my sins, and he doesn't want you living like that. He doesn't want you in this broken state. I don't remember exactly what I wrote. I do know that I tried to avoid being like accusing, whatever. I mean,
Right.
um, but I was just trying to tell her about what who Jesus is for me, what he wants to be for you. And so, I gave the letter to the nurse in training and told her to, get it to her. She couldn't. She says she would. Now, I'd love to tell you that story ends with, well, this woman came to know Jesus and then found me and gave me a hug later and all that. But that's also where I kind of feel like that this is, I mean, the story that sounds good for movies, but that's not real life.
Right.
She checked out of the hospital and she never got the letter. So then why that? Why even go through all that? Okay, well, this is it's a complete waste of my time, injury, whatever. But again, you're missing the point. I mean, God says to obey, and to
Mm-hmm.
obey his command, obey his word. And so I did what I felt like was necessary at the
Yeah.
time. But, you know, as I went through my therapy and everything, and I've had all these visitors come talk to me and, ask, how I'm doing and such. And I'm fine. I'm good. Um, and they're just like, well, you'll be able to walk again soon. I said, sure. To this day, I still carry scars, which I'm not going to put my legs up on the podcast or anything like that, but I do have a big gash still on my left leg. It goes right down the bones like a big stripe, and you can definitely see the scars on my ankle. That it's to this day it's stiff. So some people will see me limp a little bit, and I don't know if you noticed when I limped when I walked in. You may not have, but
No.
particularly as it gets colder, you'll be able to see it more. I've got metal screws all in my leg, and people ask me, "Goes, are you okay? Did you get hurt?" And that's when I can stop and tell them what happened. And usually it's in passing, so I have to give an abbreviated story, which is why it's good to have a platform like this to
Yeah.
tell the story.
Absolutely.
But it was a teaching tool for me. I felt like that God was trying to get me to slow down
Mm-hmm.
and just and it's not a punishment or anything, because I don't believe that's how God works.
Right.
But it's just say, Steve, I mean, pause and think about the good that you can get from this. um Heck, I'll even tell you, this was fairly recent. I had a student in my class that I won't mention them by name, but student in my class that had a near death experience in a car accident. And I was able to tell stories to him about how I could relate
Yeah.
and connect in that way.
Yes.
and so that, something like that, if that's something that can really give perspective to another student,
Right.
then it's worth it because, I mean, I can carry a limp, it
Mhm.
doesn't bother me. It's part of me now.
Right.
I mean, I could probably go get it fixed, but it's a lot of money, but that's fine. I can handle
Yeah.
it.
Well, because now it's a tool, and now it's a little segue for you to tell people that story
Mhm.
and how, you know, whatever your injury was and whatever the state of the other driver
Mhm.
was,
Mhm.
obviously God did some hard work in
Yeah.
you while you were in the hospital,
Yeah.
that you were able to shift to that mindset and just
Yeah.
go there like, you know what? If I never walk again
Mhm.
or whatever, it's more important that, I'm better off than that other
Yeah.
girl, you know?
Yeah.
And it's more important that I let her know, God said, you're going to forgive her, tell her about Jesus. Now, whether she ever got the letter or not,
Yeah.
we have to learn. You said it's important to obey. And of course, I think we've all heard this. If you grew up in church or if you read your Bible yourself, that obedience is better than sacrifice.
Mhm.
And it is so important to hear God and obey. Um, but part of that is also knowing that if you've done what you can, God has to do what you can't.
Yeah.
And you have to leave the results up to Him.
Yeah.
So just listening and taking action when He
Mhm.
says take action. But
Yeah.
I love that story because I think there's a lot of people who can identify with that. And maybe somebody's listening to it now and they're thinking,
Mhm.
okay, I need to forgive the driver or I need to forgive the person who caused this harm to me. And actually, um, maybe they're realizing, okay, God loves them as much as He loves me. And maybe that would be a way for me to connect and tell them, hey,
Yeah.
if you don't know Jesus, then, you can.
Yeah. And I I think also too, one of the things we struggle with as human beings is that when you see other people suffer and go through hardship and go through difficulty or go through an injury or something, and they may say that's not fair. Why
Mhm.
would God allow a bad thing to happen? Well, you don't know that story. You don't know what God's doing there.
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, on the outside, I say it all the time. I mean, I'll see people go through some very difficult circumstances, and it doesn't seem right, but I don't know their story, and I don't know how God can work or how
Mhm.
He's working for long term
Mhm.
with that. So, yeah, I mean, I try to use this as much good as I can. I mean, so if anybody were ever asked, what's the deal with your leg? I mean, I don't usually wear shorts at work, so but if they do, they'll see a scar, and then they'd be like, "What is that?" And I said, "Well, let me tell you,
Yeah.
it was one of the scariest nights of my life." And
Yeah.
I'll tell them from there. So, um, but yeah, I mean, grateful for the trials.
Yeah.
I mean, as much I think it's just count all joy, brethren, when we experience many
Right.
trials, because they're students, they try to avoid all the difficulty in trials and the
Mhm.
frustration. It's like, but
Mhm.
that's supposed to grow you, make you better.
Yes.
Because I've done lots of conversations with high school students and say, I know that what you're dealing with is rough. I was like, but one day a younger person may need to hear that. You
Mhm.
might save a person's life because
Mhm.
you're a testament how you survived the abuse, a car accident, drugs, whatever.
Mhm.
So, but,
It
so yeah.
it does look sometimes like other people have it easy though, right?
Yeah.
And so, um,
It appears that way. We
yes.
have no
So you don't
idea.
know. Yeah.
I have learned in my years of life that people do a really good job of covering up.
They do. They do.
So,
But even if somebody does live a sort of charmed life and you're going through a bunch of junk, if we could learn, and usually we don't learn until later, but all of it is preparation.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what you don't know until later, until you're in a moment where it finally makes sense and you're like,
Mm-hmm.
okay,
Yeah.
this is why I was put here. This is why I had the rejection here. This is why I was kept from going here or doing this, or why it didn't work out with a relationship or something like that. Eventually, you will see, just hang in there, you will see the reason behind it later.
Mm-hmm.
So, Steve, thank you so much for being here.
Absolutely.
I just want to ask you one more question. Everybody gets this question at the end of the show. You said this was 19 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay. So we saw how you handled it then.
Yeah.
And actually, I think that's amazing. I don't think most people would have handled it that way. But that was 19 years ago. Today, the man you are, the person you are, teacher, husband, everything, going all the way back to that accident, that trauma. How did going through that make you better?
Well, it just taught me a lot of, it helped me mature and have perspective. Like I said, I'm very passionate about helping others in a small scale. You can ask my wife. I'm not good in speaking in front of people. I'm really not. I mean, now some people would say I sell myself short, and maybe I do. But I could not be the pastor that speaks in front of 10,000 people. I don't feel like I could. Maybe God says, "No, Steve, stop. You can." Um, but it made me better because God was trying to tell me, He's like, spread my good word in a smaller scale to help people one on one, to help that person that goes through the same thing you go through, the same things that you struggle with, and also it helped me to have perspective in life,
Yeah.
and so yeah, it absolutely has made me better. It absolutely has improved me. So
I love that so much. So, if you feel like you are not important, what you do is insignificant, maybe you're not involved in something that has a ministry title. It doesn't matter. If you love the Lord and you belong to Him and you serve Him, then whatever you do and you do it as unto the Lord, then that's service to Him and that is ministry. And like we said earlier, most people are not going to have a huge platform. Most people are not going to fill stadiums. Most people are not going to get millions of views around the world. But you do have somebody in your home, in
mm-hmm.
your class,
Mm-hmm.
across the street, somewhere near that you know who you can love and who you can make a difference in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
And any last words that you want to say?
Well, um, well, I just thank you for having me on here. Um, I would like to mention one thing, if you don't mind.
Sure.
This is something that just recently happened. I wanted to bring this up so that people could be aware on the podcast because this is a recent event. John Milliken was a assistant coach of mine in track and field, and a former teacher at Dade County. Was a former teacher at Lafayette. He lost his life a couple days ago to a house fire, and kind of goes back to what we talk about with the adversity and the struggle
Yeah.
that this family is now freshly dealing with. So, um, but his wife and kids will recover. So it's an ongoing thing. And for anybody listening to the podcast, I just want to say that please pray for them. But also, there's a GoFundMe for his family. They lost their entire home.
Okay.
And these kids they don't have a father anymore. I mean, which is sad. And again, it's like, why God? Well, it's a story that's playing out. We have no idea.
Right.
So, but I just ask that anybody in your podcast community to pray. I've put some links on my Facebook page. My
Okay.
Facebook page is Steve Green Jr. and I also have a Dade County Track and Field
Yes.
Facebook page that you can follow.
Yep. We can link those
you
too
can link
in the
those
description.
because because what I did is I've put the GoFundMe on there
Yes.
John
Okay.
Milliken volunteered for 3 years. He did it for no money because he cared about what we were doing at Dade County,
Yeah.
and so I'm hoping that he can. I'm hoping that the family can be able to at least financially recover, and it's going to be a really tough battle for them emotionally. So trying to do all I can to help them
Yes.
for what he's done for me and for our school. So, but yeah. So I do want to just mention that. I want
Yeah.
to plug that in a little bit.
Yes,
So
I'm so glad you did. Our hearts go out to them.
yeah,
Um, can't imagine what they're dealing with, but yet again, this is one way that you can just help that next person in front of you.
yeah,
And so, if you can help, please do. We will share the GoFundMe and his social links so you can get a hold of him. If you are wanting to follow Dade County Track and Field or FCA or anything like that, or if God is speaking to you to help this family, he can get you in touch with them or let you know the right avenues to take and what you can do to help. So, Steve, thank you again for being here.
that's right.
Thank you for reaching out and
Absolutely.
just obeying the Lord and thinking,
Yeah.
okay, I've got something I need to share and I'm going to go do it. And thank you for spending your time with me this
Thank you.
afternoon.
Absolutely.
And thank you guys for watching the Make Me Better podcast.